Okay, well, good morning, everybody. And this is the Police Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. And of course, today is July 12th, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And good morning to everybody. We have some housekeeping that we need to read, which is, of course, the pandemic statement, which is protocol. So I'll begin with that. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with the ordinance number 20-A14, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the pandemic 19. The members are electronically present at this meeting. Please state your name and say present. And we'll start off with Brian Williams.
Present.
And John Spriggett?
Present.
Okay. And of course, Tanishka, is she here yet?
I'm present.
Oh,
I'm
great.
here.
Okay, then your video is not on yet, but will be shortly, I'm sure. And of course, myself. The opportunities for the public to access and participate. Oh, pardon me. Oh, Maureen, there you are. Okay, Maureen Dean, are you present?
Present.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. The members who are electronic, okay, the opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County website, www.albemarle.org, and at www.publicinput.com and /PDCAC. All right, then. We will start off by welcoming Ann Malik. Ann comes to us from the Whitehall District. Thank you for joining us this morning, Ann.
Thank you for the invitation. It's always wonderful to catch up.
Okay, very good.
It was wonderful to see staff at the 4th of July parade and the 2nd of July parade in Crozet as well. Thank you all.
You made all three.
I skipped for Union. I wasn't feeling well. I was wiped out by Crozet, but I did. They did have great parades in both other places.
And of course, welcome, Chief. It's good to see you again. It always is.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, very good. Matters before the public. Chief? Do we have any matters before the public? Voicing opinions of concerns or opinions that are helpful or accolades, or what can you tell us about what you've heard from the public so far?
Yes, sir. I had our internal affairs pull some numbers for us to review. While there's no new information to pass along here recently, year to date from January 1 through July 11th, covering the first 2 quarters of the year, we've had 14 citizen complaints reviewed by our internal affairs office. Out of those 14 complaints, we had 1 sustained findings. Only 1 of them was sustained, and that was for an officer failing to file a police report, which was considered a performance review that was quickly remedied. Comparatively, we've had 21 citizen accommodations within the same time period. So our accommodations from the citizens are outpacing our citizen concerns and complaints.
The one that required a greater level of supervision from the public, you had indicated was an officer not filing a report.
Yes, sir.
All right, do you have anything brief to tell us about that?
No, that was just a simple performance measure. It was a new officer that while a police report should have been taken, wasn't taken. So, and again, that's just a minor policy performance measure. It's not significant.
And I imagine he's been chatted with and won't happen again too soon.
Yep.
Is that right?
Sure, that is correct.
These things happen. All right, Chief. Thank you so much. if the public would like to reach you, what is the best way for the public to go about communicating a concern or an accolade, et cetera? Can you briefly tell us the best measure to get in touch with you if there's a high level of concern from the public?
Yes, sir. The citizens always call in to the main police department services division telephone number, and that's 434-296-5808. And ask to speak with me if it's that concern, or they can contact internal affairs, or they can look at the police department's website and follow the link to ask ACPD to follow written concern.
Is there an email? And if there is an email for the public to send, do you actually, how do you get informed as to whether there's a serious level of concern from a citizen and they send an email in?
Through either our internal affairs or Miss Danielle Birch or Miss Cindy Jones will contact me and let me know if there's a citizen complaint concern that requires attention.
Okay, then. And what is that email?
It's askacpd.org.
Okay, then. Thank you, Chief. Moving on, first of all, does anybody have any questions for the chief about what we had just mentioned from the committee? Brian, you have any questions for the chief as to what was just mentioned?
I do not.
Okay. John?
I don't have any questions, but if you notice on your screen that B has arrived.
Hello, B. We're all rooting for you. I think your voice is out. Is audio?
Yes, I had problems I'm on my phone because I had problems getting on my computer. So I apologize for being late, but how are y'all doing? And I'm glad to be here. It's been a little rocky, but that's okay. I'll get through it.
Okay. Well, we love having you. All
Thank
right. Let's see. Maureen, you have anything for the chief at this point?
I do not.
And Tanishka, do you have anything for the chief at this point? All right. And welcome to you. We're so happy to have you again. This is your second one for you and Maureen. All right. Okay, moving on, the new business, we decided to change the schedule a little bit because, of course, Brian's out of town, and we wanted him to update us on his quest towards the resolutions associated with the intersection between public policing and mental health. It's a huge topic. He is on a mission and been on a mission. And Brian, what can you tell us? And we hope that you continue to update us on this very important topic throughout the year.
First of all, it's just a pleasure to see each of you. And I'm really thankful for, of course, this month and when we celebrate on the 4th, and for the service that's been rendered by those who serve us. So Chief Reeves, and to the officers and staff, thanks so much. And I want to give a brief update on where we are right now. Really thankful for the generosity of some folks, and I don't know if I need to name them. I forgot to ask if it's okay for me to identify the person who really, is that okay for me to do that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Richard has really gifted us in terms of hosting a convening in the fall. Bringing in our 4 sites. Our 4th pilot site is New Orleans. August 2nd through the 4th, couple of my research assistants and I will go to New Orleans to launch the mental health public awareness campaign in New Orleans, in conjunction with a couple of entities, the University of New Orleans Foundation and a nonprofit called Son of a Saint. And then in the fall, the date to be determined, we will host a convening all of the 4 sites here in Charlottesville area, bringing together influencers, be they first responders, elected officials, state government kind of officials, youth development organization members and leaders, to really kind of think about what are some of the lessons that we're learning across those 4 pilot sites, and how do we move the needle a little forward. the strategy that we're incorporating is one that how can we be coactive instead of reactive in order to be proactive in really addressing this issue on multiple fronts? Not just the trauma and the issues and crises within communities, but also how that impacts first responders. So yesterday I had a series of conference calls with some hospitalists as well as mental and behavioral health executives. And that will probably be one of our signature events of this 2-day kind of convening, to have a public facing panel discussion with those folks who represent large hospital systems, small hospital systems, not just in the state of Virginia, but also I think I have a pretty good confirmation from one in the state of Georgia, one in California, and we're hoping to get Gilbert Gonzalez to be in person from Texas, as well as a behavioral health facility administrator in Baltimore, just to name a few. But more information will be forthcoming as we continue to kind of shape out this particular convening. I'm really, again, pleased of the support and the leadership of Richard, but we've received some additional support from the Athens, Georgia Area Community Foundation, who will also help offset some costs. University of New Orleans Foundation, an anonymous couple here in Albemarle County as well. And we're still kind of waiting on some additional kind of entities to bring together up to 6 to 10 representatives from each of those 3 external sites to join folks from Albemarle County, Charlottesville, Central Virginia, during that 2-day event. May have rambled a little bit. I apologize. I'm at another meeting that's kind of related here at the Kettering Foundation in Dayton, Ohio, where we really focus on, how do we improve our democracy? What's some of the problems behind the problems? And of course, this work that we will convene in Charlottesville in the fall kind of fits into that whole narrative too. And again, just appreciate all the support. And one other guy who's really been helping out is Tom Von Hemert, and we all know Tom. So we're hoping to really put something together that will make a difference in the lives of communities, in the lives of people, in the lives of those professionals who serve people. Any questions?
Maureen, you have a question for Brian at this point?
No, I don't.
Okay. Let's see. Anne, do you have a question for Brian at this point about his quest to help improve the intersection of mental health and public policing?
Thank you. I think I've shared this with Jeff Richardson, who hopefully shared it with you all. Fairfax County has an invitation to other jurisdictions who would like to perhaps come and visit their joint intake that they have set up there. And there may be some lessons learned from them, or they may be able to come and share some of their insights with you at your September thing. So let me know if I need to provide some more contact bridges, and I'd be glad to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. The more we can get, the better. One of the things with the 4 different sites, all unique, different histories, but trying to tailor something that fits. And that's one of the things we're hoping to be able to kind of encourage other communities. How do we intentionally engage in a process to tailor a response to those in crisis that fits those local dynamics? So love to hear from them.
Very good. John, do you have anything for Brian in terms of the intersection?
Well, just congratulations and keep pushing. You're doing great work.
Tanishka?
So the one question, and this was covered the first meeting, but just by way of a reminder, it's New Orleans, and what are the 2 other sites?
Thomasville, Georgia, which is outside of Tallahassee, Florida. Athens, Georgia, home of the University of Georgia. So we're really kind of 4, Charlottesville and Athens, somewhat similar, but still somewhat unique. Thomasville really adds to the conversation a great deal because it was the home of Southwestern State Mental Hospital. That was a huge regional kind of mental health hospital that provided tremendous services. And so Thomasville has been impacted on multiple fronts with this in terms of issues that emerged with the closing that really impacted the police department and the sheriffs with the jails, issues of homelessness and the like. So, but I think it'll be hopefully a really rich discussion from that. We're hoping to really get some, David Safran, who is the director of the Office of Public Affairs for the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities in the state of Georgia, was able to give in-person presentations both in Athens and Thomasville. And we're really trying to kind of identify who might could do likewise for the state of Virginia, as well as for the state of Louisiana during this convening, because they provided, well, David was able to provide some really great insight in terms of the vision at the state level and how that plays out across. They have like community service board kind of set up too, how that plays out regionally too. So we're just hoping to kind of listen and learn from each of the sites and then try to kind of adapt or tailor what might be working in those sites to the other sites too.
Very good.
Thank you.
B, do you have any questions about the intersection at this point?
Yeah, I just wanted, and I was toggling between my phone and the computer, and I finally got on the computer. But you mentioned a couple of dates that are coming up. And what were those and who's involved?
That's for the visit to New Orleans. So our official launch in New Orleans, August 3rd is the date, but we will travel there. My team and I will travel there August 2nd and return on the 4th.
And this is all to see how other jurisdictions deal with mental health crisis and the police department.
Yes, it's just a way to kind of better alert, the attentive public really understands and appreciates what's going on, but I think the broad general public might not be as aware. And with the partners in New Orleans, what they want to do is to kind of alert too, especially with on Saturday is the national launch of 988. But of course, I think the real launch of it, from what I understand through the directive of SAMHSA, is like September of 2023. So what we're doing is that's when they're going to really probably start highlighting it even more. Like in the state of Georgia, they don't plan on like putting out, announcements about it like on the mass public transit kind of systems until the fall of 2023. But what they'd like to do is prepare communities for that broad launch. So we're kind of assisting them in the state of Georgia with that. And I'm hoping we can be of similar assistance in Virginia, but also in Louisiana.
Right. And my concern is, and I know they've already addressed this, but you have a number of people with a mental health crisis. I mean, this is going to be fantastic, by the way, to be able to help some of those people. But you also have people that want to, shall we say, end their lives and have someone else do it, suicide by cop. And yep. I always worry about that with, cops are trained in that area, but not our workers that will be going along with them. So I know this will also involve a lot of lessons learned on how people deal with mental health crises.
We are trying to set a date that will allow either both film subjects, Ernie and Joe, or at least one of them to facilitate a half-day training with all of the participants to really kind of highlight some of the lessons they learned through the process of the work they've been doing and to encourage others. But I think you're spot on with a lot of it. We live in this area. If we see something, we're supposed to say something in order for something to get done. But what we're hoping to be able to do is provide clarity in terms of what people see, where they can kind of really appreciate those who are in crisis and not kind of criminalize being in crisis in
Right.
order to better alert, responders in terms of this is a mental behavioral health issue and how do we kind of address it on that end. I think Chief Reeves would probably concur with me. Officers operate on the information that they have. And if we don't provide really great information, we kind of prepare them for some challenges that they face. And that's something, of course, we don't want to do with it.
No, this sounds like a wonderful opportunity to help so many. So thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Well, we continue to move the ball down the field with Brian. Chief, I know you're working directly with Brian on some of these issues. Do you have any questions or comments for Brian while we're still on this topic?
Yes, sir. I just want to echo some of Brian's sentiment. I did have a conversation with Region 10 this past week, and here locally, it looks like the 988 system should be going live on the 13th. However, there's some communications that still need to be had between PD and ECC, so I'd be curious into meeting with Sonny Saxon, who's the ECC director, to talk about what protocols he has in place and what that looks like when somebody in crisis calls 911, and what the criteria is to start relaying them to 988 and seeing what those numbers start looking like. And then to Brian's point too, there's still a lot of process type issues that need to be ironed out, rolled out. I think that's why you're not hearing a lot of the 988 out publicly and not a larger campaign, because there's still some issues. It's my understanding, one example is if I'm on my cell phone and I have a 757 area code, however, I'm dialing it from here, where is that call going to, what dispatch 911 center is. So there's little bugs like that need to be ironed out, but it is exciting to start seeing this to come to fruition. I know Brian's been working on it a long time at raising awareness for it, but it's starting to take life. I also want to take this opportunity to talk about the local crisis response team that we've been working on for the past year and a half now here in Albemarle County. That's something that the board has been heavily involved with, also in reshaping the way that the Albemarle County Police Department responds to those in crisis. And here in Albemarle County, what we've done is we've partnered with Department of Social Service, Acpd, who's the DSS director, as well as Chief Eccleston and his team, the fire department, to have a joint response team when it comes to responding to mental health crisis. So that actually, those positions took effect July 1. We're now advertising and hiring those positions to work with, have this collaborative departmental approach. To Brian's point, we talk about decriminalizing mental health calls for service, and that's what it's going to look like. We're going to have somebody from fire department there who works with CARES in our senior community, as well as law enforcement officers who are going to be wearing soft uniforms, and members from DSS that have skill sets to engage with those in crisis. So it's just not a law enforcement led initiative. So we're excited about that endeavor, as well as the crisis response facility that Albemarle County is working with Region 10 on, the CTAC Center, where we are deferring select people that usually would occupy emergency room space that are undergoing mental health crisis to an offsite facility that frees up emergency space, but they can also still get their assessments and evaluations done by a Region 10 professional. And again, that's for Albemarle County. This isn't a regional approach by any means. This doesn't involve other jurisdictions like the city. We're just in different places where we are, amongst all the different jurisdictions. And I'm proud to say that Albemarle County was in a lot of ways ahead of the curve. And this also applies to the lens of Marcus Alert. Marcus Alert, the other pilot programs around the state are still adapted to some of the challenges with launching. Albemarle County was not one of the pilot programs. However, the work we're still doing, we're driving ahead, and we're doing some pretty good things. So we have a good framework, we have a good plan in place, and now we're working on the staffing component, which is the challenge of now getting it staffed to get up and running. So I just want to give everybody a brief overview as it ties directly into the work that Brian's doing.
Well, that's great news. I like the idea of walking before we run, kind of like the approach that we took with respect to the cameras. I noticed that when the topic of cameras first came up years ago, that we were cautioned and didn't buy the first generation of cameras, and we waited and we looked and we saw what worked and what didn't. And then when we finally did implement them, we were implementing the right generation of cameras, et cetera. So the walk before you run approach is something clearly Brian's trying to achieve, so that when the public does become aware of all of this, it's a smooth, successful transition. So I congratulate you, Brian, on all your work, and the community deeply appreciates it. All right, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is something we've talked about before, but not recently, and that's immigration issues. And this goes to the chief. With what's going on in our country with immigration issues, the question that I have is, how have we been helpful towards folks that are coming to our community who are immigrants? And if so, what kind of challenges that you see, and how can we be more helpful?
Hey, Richard, before I answer that question, I believe Ann had her hand up. And she
Oh,
had a
I'm
question.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Was it Ann?
Yes.
Oh, Ann, you have a question for Brian?
Well, relating to the 988, is there progress on local facilities? Because my concern when I started hearing about this is that it was all the calls were going to go to some national center. And if we don't have anybody up and running locally to take care of people, then they will fall in another hole. So I don't expect it all to be ready right now, but I do wonder how that framework is developing locally, because we certainly have a shortage of crisis beds already. And where are those expansions going to be happening? Thank you.
Well, probably at some point here in the near future, as Brian moves this thing along, we're going to ask Sunny to come back and kind of bring us up to speed from the ECC, because they're going to be an integral part of the communications on the 988 number. And so how that all really works, Sunny needs to be part of this. And of course, he's very talented. So I like the idea of the whole local thing and not letting it slip out into some national base. All right, moving along, I said, is immigration issues. And Chief, how are we being helpful? And if so, what kind of things are going on associated in your world with some of the immigration that's going on?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart over the past several years. And a couple examples of the work partnerships that we have, obviously, are with our partners with Simbareras, as well as our local attorneys, to include Ms. Cruz, working with U visas, which I'll talk briefly about, but also the International Refugee, which some of you may not know that we're starting to get more and more Afghan refugees coming into our community more and more. Just a couple months ago, I had the opportunity was invited to participate in a ceremony with our Afghan refugee committee, got a chance to interact with members in our community, and which was a great chance to talk about law enforcement in our country and some of the differences and nuances in the role of law enforcement, and to dispel any fears, because we do have segments of our population, especially in our Latin community, that have had concerns and fears of law enforcement based on either personal experience or experiences from their home countries, or the being profiled or fear of targeting, and dispelling information about how the immigration system works, and explaining to folks that the local law enforcement is not the federal immigration system. And we encourage our citizens, especially those who are victims and survivors of crime, to come forward and report. We have not always had that opportunity. It's something that I would like to think that over the past 5 years, we've done a better job of improving those relationships, especially after transforming the way that we handle U visas for a long time, and what U visas are. And Tanishka can probably speak more eloquently to that subject as I can, but to summarize that certain victims and survivors of crime that meet predicate crimes or qualifiers are eligible to apply for a U visa. And what that does is not an automatic, it's not a default, but it puts them in the door to say, hey, you're eligible for a U visa, stay in country. Is that correct so far, Tanishka? And for a while, it was the option of the law enforcement agency, even though the federal system highly recommends and encourages partnerships with local law enforcement to comply or adhere to these requests. It's still at the discretion of the chief of police whether or not they want to sign U visas or not, and that's where it gets a little gray. And in the past, different chiefs have had different opinions on U visas, and where it's been my philosophy that if you're the victim or survivor of crime and you meet the predicate prerequisites to apply, that you should apply. And in one of the trainings I went to that Ms. Cruz put on, I was even unaware of the long-term turnaround you're dealing with. Is it still about an 8 to 10 year turnaround time?
A 10-year wait for them to just adjudicate the case.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with small children that have been victimized and or the survivor of a crime in our jurisdiction, that's still a 10-year wait. So it's not an automatic, it's not a default, and it's something that we are proud to sponsor and report. Other partnerships that we have is with Simbareras. For several years, I was able to go out in the community on Saturdays and give presentation, have talks with people that were part of the Charlottesville ID card program. And that was before the laws changed, where people can immigrants can obtain valid identifications within the Commonwealth of Virginia. Before that law changed, they weren't able to. And what this ID card program was a validation or a proof, a card that they can have on them within the community. It didn't act as a driver's license or official government documentation, but it was helpful in the sense that when law enforcement would respond to an incident involving the victim or survivor of crime, and there was some sort of communication barrier or breakdown when it comes to identifying an individual, that helped expedite that communication gap when it came to identifying individuals in a voluntary capacity. So those are just two examples. We work with the Church of the Incarnation during the holiday season, during the Our Lady of Guadalupe pilgrimage that attracts several hundred people. That every December they'll make the pilgrimage from Southwood to the Church of the Incarnation in the middle of the night. The police department, at no cost to the pilgrimage, will provide a police escort to ensure that they get there safely. We've been doing that for the past 4 years, and that was a partnership. We do bicycle safety up at the Church of the Incarnation with our Latin community. Classes are summertime. We had to pause it during the pandemic, but we're looking to restart that. We'll come out, give ice cream to the kids, and pass out bicycle helmets. The majority of our literature now is also in different languages, especially for our victim witness program, that we can pass out to our staff. So we're making a lot of headway in our local, especially our local Latin community, and something that, based on the feedback that we received from Simbareras, is a partnership that we both value, and especially dispelling fears, because my position is nobody in our community should live in fear of law enforcement or fear of the government. And if any work that we can do out in the community can help dispel those fears or make people feel a little bit more comfortable in our community, it's all worthwhile. I know there's a lot to unpack there. This is something that's near and dear to my heart for a variety of reasons, but I'll just put a pin in it for there and give you an opportunity to ask questions or go around the room, Richard.
Okay, very good. Well, it sounds like you're making some serious strides, and certainly your heart's in the right place. Why don't we start off with Tanisha, because this is so near and dear to her heart. Do you have any questions for the chief with respect to the immigration issues and how he's approaching them at this point?
No questions. Just want to commend the chief, because I've been in practice in the area for a little over 8 years, and I've seen a complete evolution, and it's really been a significant change that I've witnessed to and have sensed from the community, particularly when things got very aggressive in the community and there was a lot of ICE enforcement. It was really important to have an open line of communication with the police department to be able to help the community differentiate between the federal officials and local law enforcement. And the U visa is really important, and there's been a complete turnaround with respect to the U visas. The congressional intent behind the U visa is to encourage people to make that distinction between local law enforcement and federal officials, and having the ability to seek those U visas from local law enforcement is vital to continuing to have that trust in local law enforcement. So I really appreciate all that you've done.
Thank you. And one thing, I've had the opportunity to work with Tanishka for several years now, even prior to becoming the chief of police, in a variety of matters. And it's not just a one-way line of communication. It also extends past to community concerns, especially with our Latin community, as well as any type of complaints, and where somebody might not feel comfortable with reaching out to me directly. What they'll do is reach out to community leaders like Tanishka or representatives from San Barreras to raise concerns. A lot of times we can talk through those, and I'd say 9 times out of 10 it's a breakdown in communication or perception, and we can talk through those and have those open lines of communication without one being defensive. And what that relationship has also done is encourage people to report more crimes to the police department, things that we might not have realized were going on, but also is a good way to also identify any concerns or allegations of police misconduct or police abuse or police profiling, because those are things that cannot exist in modern day law enforcement, and we don't know what we don't know. So if there are things that are going on like that we need to look into, it's important to have those relationships with the community, so that way the community feels confident that the police department is doing the right thing.
Very good. John, you have a question for the chief?
No, I don't think so. It's good to hear this is really going on, and it sounds to me like the chief is it is near and dear to his heart, and it shows. How does it perceived by the rest of the officers? Are they offering any suggestions about how to follow and what steps you have taken?
So that's a good question, John, because some of our officers also, and they don't do it for attention or media attention, will go out to the community. We've had officers that go out to classes at the local elementary school, especially officers that are bilingual, and will act as mentors to students, especially students that are struggling or students that have other family members who might be affiliated with gangs or criminal activity, to try to give a positive role model, and they'll take it upon themselves to do good deeds and act as ambassadors for our local community. And it's a mandate that I believe starts from the top when it talks to how we treat people, regardless of gender or race or ethnicity or religious beliefs, that you treat everybody equally and treat them as citizens, especially as public servants. And so if you apply that lens to how we perform, it shouldn't matter what somebody's background is, so to speak. So if somebody's a victim or survivor of crime, then we treat them with respect, we treat them with dignity, and same with other people that we deal with. So hopefully that answered your question.
It did. Thank you.
Very good, Chief. Moving along, we're running a little short on time. Ann, do you have a question for the chief?
No, I'm just so grateful for all the progress that we've been continually making since 2010. Good for you.
B, you have a question for the chief?
I ditto what Supervisor Malik said.
Okay, it's a ditto. Brian, how about yourself out there and whichever state you're
I
in?
would too just appreciate that leadership of the chief and his agency.
Maureen?
Yep, I concur with everyone else.
Okay, that's great. All right, moving on then. Let's talk a little bit about, Chief, the staffing, the morale, the compensation, and are we competitive? First of all, where are we in terms of staffing?
So right now, Richard, we have 14 full-time vacancies down. However, that number is going to change here shortly. What that full-time vacancies does not include are the people who are on light duty, the people who are on military leave right now. And in those numbers, we just put 6 people into the academy. And as the board supervisors will know, that once you put somebody in academy, they won't go live until almost a year later. So they'll be released on the street by next April. So when you factor all those in, that 14 number starts to stretch out a little bit as far as working bodies. We have lost several officers, a handful to the federal system. It's a double-edged sword when it comes to our police department starting to become a proving ground, so to speak, for the FBI and the U.S. Marshals and others that will come in and now recruit our officers to into the federal system. So it's both good and bad thing. It's a good thing to have that reputation, but it's bad for our staffing when we're trying to keep people on the street. As it relates to competitive salary, I am pleased to say I don't have exact numbers to give because still pending final approval from the county executive. But for the past 2 months, I've assembled an internal team within the police department to work with our human resources as well as our finance to move money around our internal budget. So that way we wouldn't have to go to the board of supervisors and ask for additional funds after the budget has already been approved for this fiscal year to make our starting salaries more competitive. During an internal study that we've done, there's a pay and compensation study that human resources in the county is currently doing. However, those results won't be ready till the fall, and we're in a crisis now, in a staffing crisis now. So what we've asked the county executive for permission is if we can move some money around internally and transfer funds from last year's budget that went unspent to help make our starting salary more competitive. I should have the final answer by Friday. I am optimistic that we will get our starting salary to a place where we are competitive, not just within the Commonwealth of Virginia, but I'm talking regionally as well. That's one area that we need to be competitive in, because it doesn't matter when we talk about recruiting folks that come here, especially recruiting diverse applicants, that if we're not competitive, we're just not gonna be able to recruit people, period. And so we have to make our starting salary that much more competitive. Our training and recruitment folks are doing a great job of bringing people in. However, that has stagnated because other jurisdictions have raised their starting salaries for their officers, and that's why it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're raising ours to a point where we could be at where we need to be at market.
And when is the budget coming back up, Ann and B? When's the budget session again?
Well, we're done for now.
Right, no, I know that. I'm talking about next year's budget.
That starts in March, right, Ann? I mean, that's when it officially starts. We start discussing things in December, January.
I just wanted to give you a heads up that because of the nature of the federal people pulling staff, of course, our reputation is so strong, as well as, the city and the university pulling officers. We're going to need to up our game with respect to starting salaries coming in next year. But for right now, he's doing a little shuffling to keep us afloat. So with respect to that, let's go around the room quickly. Taneshka, do you have any questions for the chief on that point? And all right, seeing none. B, do you have anything for the chief at this point?
Okay, this is way out, which is usually where I get my thoughts, but is there any way of saying, okay, if you join us and FBI, if you want to take one of our people, you gotta give us X number of dollars in order to take them?
I wish the market worked like that, Pete.
Okay, well, that's one suggestion.
Yeah.
And the second suggestion, have we thought of going nationwide? Because I think there are a lot of officers, sheriff's department, police department, and in California, huge, and a lot of people may be looking to get out of California and have all those years of expertise and training. That might be a recruitment tool to have quality of life here in Albemarle County.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. Our training recruitment unit are aware of that, and they're looking at those. We'll send people live and in person to recruitment job fairs throughout the Commonwealth. I don't think we send them nationwide though. However, we do advertise on social media as well. That's something that we've started doing, pushing out. But so have our competitors, and it's not just about the salary too. It's about our benefits, that we have a take-home car program, and that's something that we're having a conversation with the county executive officer of human resources. and when it comes to benefits of the county offices, not just for the police department, but for the county as a whole, to make the county a more attractive place to come to work. Because our department certainly isn't the only one who's struggling. But if it, there's only so many, the starting salary is great, but what's that next layer to draw people in? So those are conversations that are currently being had.
Okay. And just to let you know, Chief, that if a retired officer who maybe retires early or wants to, after X number of years has his or her full pension, wants to come out here, they will be paying Virginia state taxes, not California taxes. That's another huge incentive for them to move out.
One other incentive too, B, while you're talking about that, is our public safety pay scale that I know several people in this room were part of getting that implemented. So when we're talking about attracting certified officers, we have some certifieds that are pending background right now or pending conditional offer, depending on different circumstances. But it's attractive because that way the certified officers come in from other jurisdictions, their train up time is cut to a fraction, and we can get them out on the street a lot quicker. As opposed to having
the delta is about a year. So
yes,
I mean, having somebody who's an existing patrolman as a whole is a home run.
yes.
All right, John, do you have any questions?
Well, just a quick one. When we increase the level of compensation for the initial officers, does that impact the pay compression problem?
Not if it's done correctly, and that's been the part that we've been working with finance and human resource on, is to increase it. How do we increase the starting salary? When you increase that salary, you typically see the accordion effect. It goes up throughout the public safety pay scale. However, the public safety pay scale, there's some attention that needs to be had to it under this new HR administration. They're looking at it with finance on the way that it's been managed by previous folks. So, but the public safety pay scale was put in place to avoid compression. So that's the trick, is to make sure that at the top half of the public safety pay scale, we're not so far outside of market that it, any work that we're doing on the base end to get us to market, that we're not blowing it out the top end, that you're inflating the top half of the public safety pay scale, where it becomes a challenge to fund the whole entire thing. And the other piece of the public safety pay scale too is that I've asked that we take an examination on how we're looking at it, because right now, like the fire department, sheriff departments are on the public safety pay scale, that perhaps it's time to take a step back and let the markets decide, instead of everybody having to move simultaneously and looking at the job performance and job functions of the different departments, as opposed to everybody get paid the same. So those are conversations that are being had. So more to come on that, John.
Brian, you have a question for the chief?
A very brief one related to this comment, this thread. How like relocation packages, if we kind of think about, recruiting from California, some other part, are relocation packages a part of the profession of policing, or part of Albemarle County? And if not, could that possibly be an opportunity for foundations to kind of think about how do you raise funds to kind of help offset, to better attract those who might be at other places?
Yeah, right now, again, another great question. The board of supervisors approved last December a recruitment bonus. It's not a moving package, it's a relocation package. I've had these conversations with the foundation. My problem is, Brian, with the it's something that we got to do correctly, because what I don't want to do, it would have to involve a contract, so to speak, and who would be eligible for that relocation, how much that relocation would cost, and what's the return on investment, to make sure we're just not throwing money out there and moving somebody to Commonwealth of Virginia, and then suddenly they go to like UVA or Charlottesville City Police Department on our dime. So, but those are conversations that are being had.
Okay. Taking your employees is pretty common in this region, it seems like. All right, Maureen, what do you have for the chief at this point? Okay.
Nothing, thanks.
Okay, have I missed anybody? Oh, Ann, okay.
Sorry, thank you. But I would, while we begin, I mean, the county executive will be putting together his budget, but he needs 3 months of input from all of your departments. And so in many years past, there was sort of this, which is not happening now, I don't think, but there was sort of a top-down, don't ask for money attitude, which I had to push back very hard on at the individual department levels to say, ask anyway. It's really important that the Board of Supervisors members see that the chief is asking for 14 positions and don't regulate yourself. You know, we may have to, but if you ask what you really need, then we have a much better chance of getting that argument won at that level. But if we don't know ahead of time, then we're all cooked on that one. And I'm glad you're taking care of the compression issue. And I'm very glad you're looking at the sort of merit and evaluations within the pay scale to be able to give true credit for those who are excelling, because you have lots of people who are excelling, but nobody needs to be carrying everybody else. Thank you so much.
Well, there's a heads up for you, Chief. So ask up front what you need and make sure it's comprehensive. All right, moving on then to let's see, we're really low on time, so we'll have to move the camera program to the next meeting. What can you tell us about our recent awards dinner, the public awards dinner that was a picnic? How can you tell us a little bit about how that worked out? I was unfortunately out of state. I would have loved to have come, as you know.
Yeah, no problem. And I can just provide a 10-second overview of the body camera. Our body cameras are completely rolled out now, Richard. So they're live. Our program is live and in effect. And so that was a huge accomplishment and achievement amongst our collective effort between IT and staff. But we can do a deeper dive into that next month if need be. But as far as the banquet this year, we decided to tweak it up a little bit. In the past, based on feedback from the officers, having it at just a +1 at an event like a Boar's Head or a Farmington, our officers wanted to do something more family oriented. So this year what we did was we had the foundation partner up with Carter's Mountain, and we did a family event. So that way kids and loved ones could see their family member getting award and recognized in a informal setting. It was a very casual setting. And I know Supervisor Malik was able to attend, and it was great seeing her. And that was probably one of the more well-attended on the officer level events that I've seen in my 20 years. And
how many people would you say went to it?
There's about 240 that reserved. And so, between family members and kids and some of the foundation members and board members, and we had a live band there, which was nice, and hay rides for the kids. And it was so well received by the officers that we're looking at, initially we're looking at having a fall formal type event, and the officers wanted that family style event for the fall again too. So if we do another event in the fall, it might not be an award ceremony. We're looking at maybe having a keynote speaker and just make it a celebration, a fall celebration for police officers and their families. So more to come on that, but overwhelmingly positive response, and we were able to attract several officers to come to it that have not gone in years past, and this is by their own testimony. So I think it was a home run, and just based on the feedback I was hearing, and I appreciate the support from the community members who donated, as well as the foundation who donated to pull this off, because it wouldn't have been possible without their support. So
there was plenty of food.
Oh yes, we had food trucks this year. We didn't have the buffet lines. We actually had food trucks out there this year, and no complaints. And Carter's Mountain was a beautiful venue on top of the mountain, and could ask for better weather.
All right, B, did you go? Did you attend? Did you have an opportunity?
I was not able to because of what I'm currently going through, so I
Right.
could not.
But
So
it sounds like it was a wonderful get together.
I'll be there next time.
All right. Tanisha, any questions about the picnic? All right, Ann?
it was wonderful to see the children playing and not having to sit in their little Sunday best for 2 hours at a formal dinner. That was spectacular.
It
So much
sounds
better.
like it sounds like a vote of approval to me. All right, John, how about yourself? What, do you have any questions for him about the picnic?
No, I don't. I'm sorry I missed it. We had a in-house visit from the COVID world. And so, but that's gone. We'll be there next year.
Well, or maybe in the fall, who knows, right? Now that we're all teed up at what a good event it is. Brian, you have any questions?
No questions. Glad everyone enjoyed it.
All right. Maureen, have any questions about the picnic?
No, it sounds terrific, and I'm all about supporting, engaging your family with the officers and letting them engage with their with other officers and their families.
Cynthia, you have a time, what time do we have at this point?
It is 9:57 a.m. So we have just a few more minutes before we have to
All right, well,
adjourn.
let's, Chief, let's circle back for a moment, seeing we have just a couple of 2 or 3 minutes. Let's talk a little bit more about the camera program. You just mentioned that it was fully implemented. This is something we've been working on for a long time. And as I had mentioned before, we waited to get it right, to see what problems other jurisdictions have. And so are you feeling confident that it is up and going to the best of its ability at this point?
Yes, sir, I do. Aside from minor technical hiccups that occur with any new technology. For those of you unaware, when I became Deputy Chief of Police about 1.5 years ago, one of my top priorities, I had several top priorities how that works, and one was policy overhauling the entire policy manual, mental health reform, and body cameras. Those are my top 3. And because under the previous chief, Colonel Steve Sellers, that was one of his projects that he tried to implement before he left, with the body camera program. And for a variety of reasons, it got tabled. But becoming Deputy Chief of Police and engaging with the community, and especially post Ferguson and post Freddie Gray, the expectation from the community, and one of the questions is, why don't we have body cameras? We have in-car cameras and dash cams, but we needed that next evolution. So working with our finance department, working with Captain Kevin Miller to help champion that initiative, and with the county executive's office to get money to fund that program. As the chief, I was able to see that vision come to fruition, and through having a talented team to bring that up. So that way, that's no longer a concern when I attend community meetings. And it's not just community driven. Our officers also wanted body cameras too, for their protection. We talk about the complaints that our officers receive. With body cameras now, we can quickly either confirm or dispel any complaints that come in. And then we also do periodic audits that our supervisors do of in the body camera footage too, to make sure, almost spot check, to make sure that our officers are out here doing the right things and weighing and balancing their privacy concerns too. Because you think about your jobs and occupations, you wouldn't want to have a camera on you 24/7. Wouldn't find that line in weighing policy, those privacy issues that if you're having a private offline conversation with a peer, that we're not infringing on that policy and or that conversation. So having strong policy to match with deployment was huge. So I'm glad that initiative got launched. And we have a couple questions, I think, that led us right up to our time. But
All right, well, I did want to just point out that back in the day, we did a survey with the officers, and the officers, unlike some other jurisdictions, overwhelmingly supported the ideas of cameras, which makes our community somewhat unique. And I think that goes right to the quality of the officers we have and its leadership in the county. All right, well, it's just about time. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Okay.
All right, well, thank you to the members as well as the supervisors. And Brian, please drive safe. We look forward to seeing you again here in Albemarle County soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.